It's 11:59 p.m. Your phone glows in the dark as the seconds slide by, quiet, ordinary, almost indifferent. In 1 minute, the date will change. It's your birthday. For most people, this moment is supposed to feel like a threshold, a door opening into messages, calls, celebration. But inside you, there's no spark waiting on the other side, just a flatness, or something heavier, an urge to disappear from the day before it arrives. You think about turning your phone off, muting notifications, letting tomorrow pass without witnesses, not because you're sad, at least not in the obvious way, but because being seen feels costly, like something you don't have the energy to perform. And that's the part no one talks about. The dread doesn't come with tears or drama. It's subtle. A tightening in the chest, a quiet calculation of how much you'll need to respond, smile, reassure, explain. How many versions of thank you you'll need to deliver convincingly. You wonder, briefly, guiltily, what's wrong with me? Why doesn't this feel special? Why does a day meant to celebrate you feel like something to endure? Here's what matters. This silence, this hesitation, this wish to stay invisible for just one more day. It isn't a flaw, it's a signal. And before we judge it, we need to understand where it comes from. We don't just celebrate birthdays, we script them. From an early age, we're taught that this one day carries a specific emotional assignment. You're supposed to feel grateful, seen, happy, energized. The culture doesn't whisper this, it insists. Balloons, candles, posts, reminders. Even the question itself comes loaded. So what are you doing for your birthday? There's no neutral answer. This is what psychologists call the happiness imperative, the pressure to produce joy on demand. And the problem with that pressure is simple. Emotions don't work like appointments. You can't schedule meaning for 9 o'clock a.m. and expect your nervous system to comply. When your inner state doesn't match the outer expectation, something uncomfortable forms in the gap. Not sadness necessarily, but guilt, a sense that you're failing a test you never agreed to take. You start monitoring yourself. Why don't I feel more excited? Why does everyone else seem to love this? So you perform, you smile a little wider, you say the right things. You reassure people that you're excited, even when what you really feel is tired or detached. The celebration becomes less about how the day feels to you, and more about how it looks to others. And over time, that mismatch does something quiet but powerful. Joy stops feeling like a possibility and starts feeling like an obligation, a social contract you're expected to honor, whether your inner world is on board or not. For many people, the discomfort around birthdays doesn't come from the day itself. It comes from the pressure to prove that the day worked. Not caring about your birthday isn't one single feeling. It lives on a spectrum, and where you fall on that spectrum matters. For some people, it's passive indifference. There's no strong emotion attached, positive or negative. The day arrives and it simply feels ordinary. You might forget it's coming until someone reminds you. The number changes, the calendar flips, and life continues. To you, it's pragmatic. Another year passed. Nothing mystical, nothing urgent. This response is often rooted in a logical worldview, one that doesn't automatically assign meaning just because tradition says you should. But for others, it's something heavier. This is active aversion. As the date approaches, your body reacts before your mind can explain why. There's a low-grade anxiety, a tightness in your chest, a desire to withdraw. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as birthday blues, but that term barely captures the experience, because this isn't sadness in the classic sense, it's stress. Instead of anticipation bringing dopamine, your nervous system releases cortisol. The day feels like a demand, a spotlight you didn't ask for, a moment you have to get through rather than enjoy. And here's the key distinction. Both responses are adaptive. Indifference often develops when you've learned not to invest emotional energy where it isn't rewarded. Aversion tends to form when past experiences taught your body that this day comes with pressure, not pleasure. So before asking why you don't care about your birthday, the more important question is this: does the day feel neutral to you, or does it feel unsafe? That answer changes everything about how we understand what's really going on. The human brain is not built to experience the present as it is. It is built to predict. Long before a birthday arrives, your mind has already rehearsed it. Images, scenarios, emotional outcomes. And society provides the script. This will be the day you feel especially loved, especially appreciated, especially happy. The expectation is set unusually high, sometimes impossibly high. Psychologists refer to this as the expectation gap, the space between what we anticipate and what actually happens. Here's where things quietly fall apart. Your brain measures satisfaction not by absolute pleasure, but by comparison. When something is better than expected, dopamine is released. When it meets expectations, there's little change. And when it falls short, even slightly, the brain registers it as a loss. On a normal day, the baseline is low. A small kindness, a message, a good coffee, an unexpected moment of ease can feel genuinely rewarding because it wasn't promised. But on a birthday, the baseline is perfection. The emotional bar is already at the ceiling. So if the weather is off, if someone forgets, if the energy feels awkward, if the celebration doesn't match the fantasy your brain rehearsed, the nervous system doesn't read that as still a good day, it reads it as failure. For people who say they don't care about their birthdays, this mechanism is often already understood at a deep, intuitive level, not intellectually, but somatically. Somewhere along the way, you learned that investing hope into this one day comes with too much risk. So you opt out, you lower the expectations, you treat the day as ordinary. Not because you don't want joy, but because you're protecting yourself from disappointment that feels unnecessary and avoidable. This isn't emotional numbness, it's emotional intelligence shaped by experience. When you stop demanding that one day prove your worth or your happiness, you take the pressure off your nervous system. And in that space, something paradoxical happens. The day often becomes easier to tolerate, sometimes even quietly pleasant. Not because it was perfect, but because it wasn't carrying the weight of expectation anymore. There's a layer of this experience that rarely gets named, even quietly. And that layer is shame. Not the loud kind, the kind that collapses you, but the subtle kind that asks you to manage other people's feelings before you're allowed to acknowledge your own. The kind that whispers, if I don't care, someone else might feel rejected. So you pretend. You respond with enthusiasm that doesn't quite reach your chest. You say you're excited when what you really feel is neutral or drained. You reassure people that their effort matters, even when the attention itself feels overwhelming. Not because you're dishonest, but because you're considerate. For many people, birthdays activate a deeply ingrained people-pleasing response. You've learned to read the room quickly, to anticipate disappointment before it happens, to smooth it over before anyone has to feel it. The goal isn't celebration, it's damage control, and that's exhausting. What makes it harder is the unspoken social rule. If you don't care about your birthday, you're assumed to be cold, ungrateful, or emotionally distant. So instead of being honest, you perform gratitude, you perform joy, you perform being easy to celebrate. Over time, the day stops feeling like it belongs to you at all. It becomes a responsibility to show up correctly, to react appropriately, to make sure no one leaves feeling awkward or unappreciated. Here's the truth most people never say out loud. Sometimes not caring about your birthday isn't about indifference. It's about being tired of carrying other people's emotional comfort on a day that was supposed to be yours. And that quiet shame, the belief that your real reaction might hurt someone, is often what makes the whole thing feel so heavy in the first place. Beyond the cake and the messages, a birthday carries something heavier. It marks time. No matter how much we try to ignore it, a birthday is a biological signal, a quiet reminder that another year has passed and that time is not abstract. Psychologists call this mortality salience, the moment when awareness of our own finitude drifts into consciousness, not as panic but as weight, because the number doesn't arrive alone. It brings questions you didn't invite. Where am I really? Am I where I thought I'd be by now? Did I waste time, or did time simply move differently than I expected? These questions surface whether you want them to or not. The day becomes an unspoken life review, and the culture around us doesn't make this easier. We're surrounded by timelines, milestones tied to age, success measured against decades, quiet comparisons scrolling past us daily. When your birthday arrives, it turns those comparisons inward. You don't just notice the year you've gained, you notice what you haven't checked off. For many people, this is where the discomfort deepens. It's not the aging itself that hurts, it's the evaluation. The sense that the number demands an explanation you don't feel ready to give. So opting out, treating the birthday like any other day, becomes a way of staying present rather than judgmental. A refusal to reduce your life to a snapshot or a scoreboard. Because growth doesn't move in clean increments, meaning doesn't follow calendars, and becoming who you are isn't something that can be audited once a year. For those who say they don't care about birthdays, it's often not denial. It's a quiet choice to let life continue unfolding without forcing it to justify itself on a single symbolic day. For many people, the discomfort around birthdays has less to do with time and more to do with attention. Modern birthday culture is deeply extroverted. It centers on gatherings, group energy, being watched, being responded to. You're expected to sit in the middle of the room while people look at you, speak about you, and wait for your reactions. For some nervous systems, that's energizing. For others, it's draining. If you're introverted, being the focus of attention isn't neutral, it's costly. Psychologists call this the spotlight effect, the heightened awareness of being observed and evaluated. When you open a gift, you're not just receiving it, you're performing appreciation. Your face, your tone, your timing, all feel monitored. You're managing expectations in real time, making sure your reaction matches what others hope to see. That kind of emotional labor adds up quickly. What's often misunderstood is this: wanting a quiet birthday doesn't mean you dislike people. It means your nervous system restores itself in low stimulation environments. Silence, familiarity, predictability, these aren't signs of withdrawal, they're forms of regulation. So when someone says they'd rather spend their birthday alone, or with one person, or doing something ordinary, they're not rejecting connection. They're choosing sustainability. They're protecting their energy so they don't end the day depleted and disconnected from themselves. In a culture that equates visibility with value, this preference can be misread as coldness, but it isn't. For introverted people, the most meaningful moments don't happen under a spotlight. They happen off to the side, quiet, unobserved, and deeply felt. And honoring that on your birthday isn't antisocial. It's self-aware. Our relationship with birthdays rarely begins in adulthood. Most of the time, it's formed quietly, years earlier, before we ever had language for it. Think back to your early birthdays. Not the photos, but the feeling. Was the day actually about you or about managing the mood of the adults in the room? Maybe the celebration was chaotic. Maybe it was tense. Maybe it came with arguments behind closed doors or expectations you didn't understand. Or maybe it was forgotten altogether, overshadowed by a sibling, a crisis, or simply a lack of attention. Children notice these things. When a child learns that their birthday brings stress instead of safety, something subtle happens. They stop attaching hope to the day, not consciously, but neurologically. The nervous system remembers, this isn't a place where my needs are met. In some families, the message is even clearer. A child might say they want something simple, a quiet afternoon, a small gesture, and be told no. A big party is thrown instead, because that's what birthdays are supposed to look like. The child learns an important lesson. What I want doesn't matter here. Psychologists call this learned helplessness. When preferences are repeatedly ignored, the mind adapts by disengaging. Over time, caring feels pointless. Even as adults, long after we technically have control, those early pathways remain. Birthdays don't register as opportunities for choice. They register as events that happen to you. You brace instead of anticipate. You detach before you're disappointed. This isn't immaturity, it's memory. The body doesn't forget what the mind learned early, whether a day was safe, overwhelming, or invisible. And when birthdays were never truly yours to begin with, not caring becomes a way of protecting something younger inside you, something that learned long ago to expect very little in order to survive. There's another reason some people pull away from their birthdays, one that's often misunderstood. It isn't indifference, and it certainly isn't narcissism. For people with a strong sense of responsibility toward others, the idea of being the center of attention can feel deeply uncomfortable, not because they don't value connection, but because they're acutely aware of the cost it places on the people around them. The money spent, the planning, the emotional effort. Instead of feeling celebrated, they feel indebted. In a culture that increasingly rewards main character energy, opting out of self-centered rituals can look strange. But for some personalities, asking others to pause their lives, rearrange schedules, or perform affection on command doesn't feel like a gift. It feels like an imposition. You might catch yourself thinking, why should people do all this just because I was born? I didn't earn it. There's an awareness there, an understanding that your existence isn't a personal achievement and that attention should be mutual, not demanded. Psychologically, this is often linked to high conscientiousness and humility. You're sensitive to fairness. You don't want to create discomfort for others in order to feel special yourself. The problem is, this gets misread. When someone says they don't care about their birthday, they're often labeled cold, distant, or emotionally avoidant. But in many cases, the opposite is true. They care so much about the emotional climate around them that they'd rather minimize their own needs than risk making someone else feel burdened. Not wanting the spotlight doesn't mean you don't deserve care. It means your values don't revolve around being centered, and that difference matters more than people realize. So where does all of this leave you? If you've never cared about your birthday, or if you've slowly learned not to, it doesn't mean something is missing in you. It means you've been listening to yourself more closely than most people are taught to. A birthday doesn't have to be a performance. It doesn't have to prove anything. It doesn't have to look joyful to count as meaningful. When you strip away the expectations, what remains is something surprisingly simple. A day that belongs to you. Reclaiming your birthday doesn't mean rejecting love or connection. It means redefining what care looks like in a way your nervous system can actually receive. Maybe that's working as usual, because structure feels grounding. Maybe it's a quiet walk, a book, a meal you enjoy without commentary. Maybe it's doing nothing at all. The moment you stop forcing yourself to care in the right way, the pressure dissolves. And in that absence of pressure, the day can finally soften. Not because it's special, but because it's honest. There's a quiet power in choosing alignment over appearance, in letting your life move at the pace that fits you, not the calendar. And sometimes, the most meaningful gift you can give yourself is permission to feel exactly what you feel without apology. If this video put words to something you've carried quietly, you're not alone. This channel exists for conversations like this, about the subtle, often unspoken patterns that shape how we experience ourselves. If you found value here, consider subscribing to the channel. And I'd really like to hear from you. Do you celebrate your birthday, or do you treat it like any other day? Share your experience in the comments below. Thank you for watching.